If you've ever come across a SpongeBob episode you don't recognize, stop watching. Destroy it. Don't try to be curious. Don't look for Easter eggs. Don't think you've discovered some collector's treasure. I didn't listen to that voice in my head. And now I can't sleep without hearing him laugh. I don't even know why I'm recording this. Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's my confession. Or maybe it's just something to fill the silence while I wait for that noise to start again. The scratching, the static, the laugh. God, the laugh. You probably think I'm exaggerating. A grown adult losing their mind over a cartoon tape? I thought the same thing. That's the trick of it. It lures you in with nostalgia, with the warm memory of your childhood, and then it twists that memory until it's rotten. I used to love SpongeBob. Who didn't? The show was part of growing up. Bright colors, dumb jokes, harmless nonsense. I could quote entire episodes with friends. SpongeBob was comfort, innocence. The one thing on TV that felt safe no matter how old you were. But what I found wasn't safe. It wasn't funny. And I'm not sure it was even meant for human eyes. I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's just another creepypasta. Another fake lost episode, I wish. I wish that's all it was. Because once you see the tape, it doesn't just stay on the screen. It follows you. If you're still listening to this, maybe you're curious. Maybe you think you'd watch it yourself just to prove me wrong. That's how it starts. That's how it always starts. You pop in a tape or click a file you weren't supposed to, and you tell yourself it's harmless. You laugh at the glitches, at the weird animation. You think, this is creepy, but it's not real. And then you notice the silence between the lines. The way the characters look at you. Not at each other, but at you. And the longer you stare back, the more you realize they're not just drawings. They're not just pixels. There's something else trying to come through. I made that mistake. I didn't turn it off. I watched all the way through. And that's why I can't leave my apartment anymore. That's why I tape black garbage bags over my TV. That's why I unplug my laptop at night. And why every reflective surface in this place is covered with a sheet. Because if I see it again, even a glimpse, it won't let me look away. Some of you are already leaning closer, waiting for me to describe what I saw. You want me to spell out every frame, every horrible detail. Part of me wants to, if only to get it out of my head. But the truth is, I don't think you're ready. I wasn't ready, and now I can't undo it. All I'll say for now is this. SpongeBob doesn't smile in the tape. Not really. It looks like a smile, stretched too wide, pinned onto his face like it's stapled there. And when he opens his mouth... No, not yet. If you're going to understand, you need the whole story. So let me go back. Back to when this started, when it still felt normal. Because at first, it was just another boring night at work. Another box of junk nobody wanted. And if I'd known what was waiting inside that box, I would have burned it all right there in the parking lot. But I didn't. I brought it home, and that's when everything changed. I wasn't looking for anything strange that night. I was just trying to stay awake. The thrift shop where I worked kept the back room piled high with donations. Clothes that smelled like mothballs, chipped mugs from the 90s, the occasional broken blender. My job was to sort through the mess, toss out the real garbage, and shelve whatever looked sellable. It was a Tuesday, I think. One of those nights where time seems to stretch like old gum. My coworker Jamie and I were digging through boxes, tossing random junk into piles. He kept cracking dumb jokes to keep himself entertained. "Dude, look at this," he said, holding up a porcelain clown with one eye missing. "Nightmare fuel. Think it's haunted?" "Everything in this place is haunted," I muttered. Yawning, that's when I saw it. A plain black VHS tape, wedged between some warped Disney DVDs and a stack of blank CDs. The label was handwritten in black marker, SpongeBob test reel. I laughed at first. "Check this out," I said, holding it up. "Lost SpongeBob tape. But it's worth a fortune on eBay." Jamie grinned. "Yeah, right. Probably some bootleg porn or some kid's home movie. Put it on. Maybe it's SpongeBob swearing." I rolled my eyes, but something about the tape stuck with me. It wasn't just the title. It was the way the case felt. Cold, like it hadn't been touched in years. There was no dust, though, which didn't make sense given how long it must have been sitting in that box. I shrugged it off and tossed it in my backpack. I figured I'd check it out later, maybe get a laugh out of it. That was mistake number 1. The rest of my shift crawled by, sorting, tagging, joking with Jamie. Nothing out of the ordinary. By the time I clocked out and walked home, the tape had almost slipped from my mind. Almost. My apartment wasn't much. Just a one-bedroom with peeling paint, a secondhand couch, and a bulky old TV with a built-in VCR. I didn't have much furniture, but I did have nostalgia. Half my shelves were lined with VHS tapes I'd picked up from thrift stores just like the one I worked at. So when I got home, I did what any bored 20-something would do. I made some ramen, cracked open a soda, and popped the tape in. For a moment, nothing happened, just a static. I smacked the side of the TV, the way you do with old electronics, and suddenly the screen flickered to life. That familiar yellow sponge appeared, bright, smiling, standing outside his pineapple house. It looked normal, at least at first. I leaned back on the couch, slurping noodles, telling myself I'd stumbled onto some unaired rough cut. A collector's dream. But even then, something felt off. The colors were washed out, a little too dim. SpongeBob didn't bounce around like usual, he just sort of moved, sluggish and heavy. I frowned. Maybe it was just bad quality. A test reel, like the label said. Still, I kept watching. The episode had no title card, no theme song. It just started abruptly, like we'd been dropped into the middle of a scene. SpongeBob stood in his living room, silent, staring at the TV. His face was blank. The TV screen flickered with static. I waited for a joke, a punchline, something. Nothing came. That was the first time I felt it. That creeping unease in my stomach. The sense that I wasn't watching SpongeBob, not really. I was watching something else pretending to be SpongeBob. Of course, I didn't admit that to myself at the time. I just told myself it was weird, unfinished, maybe even a prank some animator cooked up after hours. I'd heard of lost episodes before, bootlegs, leaks, even hoaxes. I figured this was just another one, but still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this one was different. Looking back now, I should have noticed the first sign. The thing that should have made me turn it off right then and there. SpongeBob blinked. Not the exaggerated, cartoony blink he always did. This one was slower, deliberate, human. And when his eyes opened, I swear for just a second they weren't drawn. They looked real. At first, I laughed it off. It had to be a trick of the animation, right? Maybe an early test frame or some intern messing around with rotoscoping. Cartoons were weird in the rough stages. Half the time characters looked broken until the final pass. That's what I told myself, over and over. Still, I couldn't stop staring at those eyes. Too glassy, too alive. They followed me, even after the scene cut. The episode went on with this sluggish, unnatural pacing. SpongeBob shuffled to the kitchen. Normally, this would be where he'd whip up a Krabby Patty or burst into one of those goofy songs. Instead, he just stood there staring at an empty counter. No music, no laughter, not even background bubbles. Just silence. I found myself leaning forward, waiting for the punchline, but it never came. Instead, the audio cut in with a sound that made me drop my soda can. A scratch, low, sharp like nails dragging across wood. Not from the TV speakers. From my kitchen, I froze. The TV screen showed SpongeBob turning his head slowly, almost mechanically, toward his kitchen doorway. And in my apartment, the scratching stopped. My heart thudded in my chest. I muted the TV, but the silence in the room only made it worse. I got up, checked my own kitchen, even opened the pantry. Nothing. Empty. When I came back to the couch, SpongeBob hadn't moved. He was still staring at his kitchen doorway, his mouth twitching like he was about to say something but couldn't. I should have turned it off, but I didn't. The next scene cut abruptly. No transitions, no fade. Just SpongeBob sitting at the Krusty Krab. Squidward was behind the register, staring off into the distance. Patrick sat at a table, but he wasn't eating. He was just sitting there, motionless. I realized with a creeping chill that none of them were blinking. The audio hissed, then glitched. SpongeBob's voice finally came through, but it was wrong. Pitched too low like a broken tape player. "Hungry," he whispered. Patrick turned his head, the movement jittery, frames missing. His mouth opened in this warped oval, but no sound came out. I paused the tape. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was a prank, an animator's sick joke. Some lost test footage never meant to air. That's all it could be. Pretty. Then I remembered the eyes. That blink. And I realized something else. The tape hadn't shown a single background gag. No signs, no posters, no clever little jokes hidden in the set design. Just blank walls, Bikini Bottom looked empty. I turned the TV off and sat there in the dark, trying to convince myself it didn't matter. Just a weird tape. Just static and silence messing with me. But that night I heard it again. The scratching. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of nails dragging across my apartment floor. At first I thought it was upstairs neighbors. But the sound was too close, too deliberate. I sat up in bed, listening. Scratch, pause, scratch. It was coming from the hallway, right outside my room. "Jamie?" I whispered, though I knew that was impossible. The scratching stopped. I held my breath, staring at the crack of light beneath the door. For a moment I swore I saw a shadow pass across it. Too small to be human, too long in the arms, the edges not quite. Natural, and then silence. I don't know how long I sat there frozen. Eventually exhaustion dragged me back under. But even in my dreams I heard that sound, looping over and over. When I woke up the next morning, my apartment looked normal. Nothing out of place. No scratches on the floor. No proof at all, except for one thing, the tape. I could have sworn I'd left it on the coffee table. But now it was back in my VCR. Rewound to the beginning. I didn't remember putting it there. I tried to laugh it off, but my laugh came out brittle. Maybe I'd been half asleep. Maybe I'd gotten up during the night and forgot. But deep down, I knew better. Later that day, I mentioned it to Jamie at work. Hey, that SpongeBob tape from yesterday. It was weird as hell. No music, no jokes. Just staring. And I swear I heard something while I was watching. He smirked. Man, you've been watching too many horror movies. Bet it's just a fan edit. Probably worth some money, though. You should upload it. I shook my head. No, something's wrong with it. I can't explain it, but it's not normal. Jamie chuckled. Paranoid, bro. It's just a cartoon. But when I tried to laugh along, it felt hollow. Because I couldn't shake the memory of SpongeBob's eyes. Too human, too aware. And the scratching in the hallway. I didn't tell Jamie the worst part. When I woke up that morning, I swore I heard SpongeBob's laugh. Not the goofy, high-pitched giggle we all know. A deeper, raspier version, echoing from the TV speakers even though the screen was off. I told myself it was just a dream, just my imagination. But looking back now, that was the first undeniable sign, the first red flag, and it was only going to get worse from there. I should have thrown the tape away, snapped it in half, tossed it in the dumpster behind the shop, and never looked back. But curiosity is a sickness, and mine was terminal. That night I gave in. I put the tape back in the VCR. It started the same way, no intro, no music. SpongeBob in his living room. But this time the colors were darker. Almost like someone had dialed down the brightness. The pineapple looked rotted, spotted with mold. The furniture sagged like it had been left in the rain. SpongeBob didn't move at first. He just sat in his chair staring at the static on his TV. Then, slowly, his head turned. Not toward the screen, but toward me. I froze. It wasn't direct eye contact, not exactly. But it felt like he was aware of me. The space between us dissolved for a moment, and I had the horrible sensation that if I leaned too close, I'd see something behind the animation. The scene cut suddenly to Patrick's rock, only it wasn't his house anymore. It was a barren mound of stone surrounded by black water. Patrick sat on top, slumped forward. His body was drawn wrong, limbs too long, skin too pale. His eyes rolled toward the camera like they were being forced, like strings were pulling them. The audio popped, then filled with this low hum. Not music, not static. A sound too deep, too real. The kind of sound you don't hear so much as feel in your teeth. Patrick opened his mouth. Frames jittered, missing. His jaw stretched too wide, snapping open like broken stop motion. No words came out. Just the hum growing louder, vibrating the glass of my TV. I flinched back, covering my ears. When I looked again, the scene had shifted. The Krusty Krab, empty. No customers, no chatter, no fryers sizzling. Just SpongeBob behind the grill staring down at something. The counter was smeared with dark red. I leaned closer, squinting. It didn't look like cartoon red paint. It looked wet, too detailed, too real. SpongeBob dipped a spatula into it, lifted it slowly and let it drip back down in thick strings. He giggled. Not the goofy laugh we all know, but a low, guttural chuckle warped by tape distortion. I felt my stomach twist. I wanted to turn it off, but my hand wouldn't move. My eyes were locked on the screen, on SpongeBob's too wide grin, his teeth too sharp, too human. The camera panned to Squidward. He was sitting at the register, eyes sunken, his clarinet broken in half on the floor. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at nothing, and then slowly, his head turned. Toward me, the humming cut out, replaced by a sudden scream. High-pitched, jagged like metal grinding against glass. I jolted, knocking my soda over, the can spilling across the carpet. But the sound didn't stop when I muted the TV. It echoed in my apartment, bouncing off the walls. For a second, I thought it was coming from inside my own head. The screen flickered. Frames skipped. The camera zoomed in on SpongeBob's face, closer and closer until the pixels blurred. His smile stretched wider, splitting his cheeks. And for just one frame, one terrible, undeniable frame, his eyes weren't drawn. They were photographs. Real, human eyes. Bloodshot, staring. I screamed and hit the power button. The screen went black, but the afterimage burned into my vision. I sat there in the dark, gasping, waiting for the sound to stop. Eventually it did, but silence was worse. Silence meant I had to face the truth. What I'd seen wasn't just bad animation or some bootleg prank. It was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the blank TV. My thoughts kept circling the same question. What the hell was that? And even though I was terrified, even though my chest hurt from how hard my heart was pounding, I knew I'd watch it again. I had to, because now I wasn't just afraid. I was hooked, and somewhere deep down, I think the tape knew that. The next day, I told myself I wouldn't touch the tape again. I even unplugged the VCR, shoved the whole machine into my closet, and tried to bury myself in anything else. Work scrolling through my phone, even scrubbing the apartment like a maniac. But that night, I couldn't shake it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw SpongeBob's face, stretched too wide, eyes too real. It wasn't memory. It was imprint, like it had burned into the back of my eyelids. By midnight, I gave up. I dragged the VCR back out, slid the tape in, and hit play. This time, I didn't just watch. I recorded it. I set up my phone in front of the screen, shaky hands trying to convince myself I was doing it for proof, for sanity. If I could play it back and analyze it later, maybe I'd find some logical explanation. Glitches, editing tricks, something. At first, it was the same footage I'd seen before. SpongeBob in the pineapple. Patrick on the rock. The crusty crab smeared with something I refused to name. But when I paused and scrubbed frame by frame, that's when I saw them. The subliminals. One frame. An image of an abandoned street. Cracked pavement, a street lamp leaning, wires dangling. Too realistic to be a cartoon background. Another frame, what looked like a morgue photo. A pale hand on a metal table, nails darkened. The image was blurry, distorted, but I knew what it was. Then another. Faces. Blurred, stretched human faces. Their eyes blacked out. Their mouths open as if mid-scream. I sat there, clicking forward, frame by frame, my stomach twisting tighter with each one. It wasn't just a cartoon. It wasn't even a lost episode. It was something else. Something bleeding into the animation like a virus. And then I found the frame that made me drop the remote. It was SpongeBob, but not drawn. His face had been replaced with something photographic. The yellow porous skin was still there, but the eyes, they weren't cartoon eyes. They were human, bloodshot, wet, staring straight out of the screen at me. I covered my mouth, choking back bile. My phone recording caught it too. Proof. I wasn't imagining things, but instead of relief, I felt worse. 'Cause if my phone could record it, that meant it was real. That meant it wasn't just in my head. I needed someone else to see. Someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. So I called Jamie. He groaned when he picked up. "Dude, it's like 1 in the morning. I found something," I said, my voice shaking. "You have to come over. Just for a minute, please." There was silence on the line, then a sigh. "Fine. But if this is just you making me watch SpongeBob at 1 a.m., I'm punching you in the throat." 20 minutes later, he was sitting on my couch, arms crossed, half asleep. I hit play, fast-forwarded to the frames, and shoved the remote into his hands. "Look," I said. He squinted at the screen. "It's just bad animation. Old tapes glitch like this." "No," I snapped. "Go frame by frame." "Right there, pause." He did. The morgue photo flickered up. His smirk faltered. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. I swallowed hard. "Keep going, the next frame." The blurred, screaming faces. Jamie leaned back. "Okay, that's messed up. But it's probably edited. Internet joke." "You're paranoid, bro." I grabbed his arm. "That's not editing. I didn't download this. I found it in a box. Who would go through the trouble of splicing this into a SpongeBob tape?" Jamie pulled away, shaking his head. "I don't know, man. But you're freaking yourself out. Burn it, toss it, whatever. Don't call me over for this again." He stood up, grabbed his jacket. "Jamie, wait," I said, but he was already at the door. He looked back once, his face pale. "Seriously, get rid of it. I mean it." And then he left. I sat there alone, staring at the frozen frame of SpongeBob's 2 human eyes. My phone still recording in my hand. Some of you watching this probably know exactly what I found. You've seen whispers of it online. Maybe even fragments passed around forums before moderators delete them. And if that's the case, then you also know what I should have done the moment I saw it. Destroyed it. But I didn't. And that's the part I regret most. After Jamie left, the apartment felt wrong. Too quiet. Not just the usual 2 a.m. silence either. It was the kind where you swear the walls are leaning closer. The hum of the refrigerator feels louder. And every shadow in the corners seems like it's waiting for you to blink. I turned off the TV, shoved the tape back in its sleeve, and told myself I'd never play it again. But the damage was already done, because that night I dreamed. No, I was shown. I was standing outside the Krusty Krab, except it wasn't a restaurant anymore. The windows were black, shattered inward. The sign was dripping, like the paint was bleeding. And the sky above wasn't ocean blue. It was this endless gray static. Then I heard it, laughter, SpongeBob's laugh. Except it wasn't right. It started high-pitched and goofy, then cracked deeper and deeper until it didn't sound like a laugh at all. It sounded like breathing. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding. And then I saw it, my TV was on. I swear I had turned it off. But there it was, glowing faintly in the dark. No sound, just static crawling across the screen like waves. The VCR light was blinking. My first thought was that maybe the tape had started on its own, like some kind of autoplay glitch. But I hadn't left it in. The tape was still on the coffee table, right where I dropped it. And yet the static kept rolling, pulling me in. I should have unplugged it right then, but instead, I sat down. I stared. The static shifted. For a second, I thought I saw SpongeBob's face again. Not smiling, not laughing, just watching me. I blinked and it was gone. That's when the nosebleed started, a sharp sting, then hot liquid spilling down my upper lip. I stumbled into the bathroom, tissue stuffed under my nose, hands shaking. My reflection looked wrong in the mirror, like my eyes weren't quite aligned, like my skin was tinted too yellow under the light. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, whatever. But deep down, I knew. Watching had done something. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. Every time someone said my name, it sounded muffled, like I was underwater. My boss asked me a question, and I swear for a split second, his mouth didn't move in sync with the words. I told myself I just needed sleep, but that night, the dreams came back. This time I wasn't outside the Krusty Krab, I was inside. The tables were overturned. Ketchup smeared like dried blood. And in the kitchen window where SpongeBob should have been flipping patties, something else stood there. It looked like him, but taller. Limbs stretched, skin pitted like rotten coral. His smile reached too far, almost splitting his face in half. And when he turned to me, his eyes weren't cartoon. They were real. I woke up screaming. Neighbors banged on the wall. I tried to apologize, but my voice cracked, raw from yelling. I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. Every shadow in the apartment looked like it was bending toward me. Every time I glanced at the TV, I swore the static twitched, waiting. And here's the part I haven't told anyone. Not even Jamie. Sometimes, I catch myself humming that stupid little SpongeBob tune. You know the one, but when it comes out of my mouth, it doesn't sound like me. It sounds like him. Some of you are probably thinking I'm exaggerating, or paranoid, or that I edited the tape myself and convinced myself it was cursed. But others, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it before. Maybe not SpongeBob. Maybe another cartoon. Another lost episode. It doesn't matter the show. The infection is the same, and once you watch, it doesn't stop at the screen. I told myself I was done. No more tape. No more static. No more SpongeBob. But addiction doesn't announce itself. It sneaks in. Every time I walked past the coffee table, I felt it. A tug. Like the tape wasn't just sitting there, but waiting, calling. I shoved it in a drawer. Then I heard it rattling inside, like something scratching to get out. I moved it to the closet under a pile of clothes. Didn't matter. I dreamed of it anyway. It wasn't just nightmares anymore. It was cravings. My hands would twitch like they wanted to rewind, play, pause. My ears rang with the sound of a laugh that never ended. 3 days in, I cracked. I told myself it would just be once more. Just to prove it was in my head. I set the tape in the VCR like a smoker lighting one last cigarette. My hands trembled as the machine swallowed it. The screen flickered. The static hissed. And then, there he was again, SpongeBob. Only this time he was closer. The camera angle wasn't wide anymore. It was tight, suffocating, like he was leaning against the glass of the screen, staring right into me. I froze. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I leaned in without meaning to, heart hammering until my forehead almost touched the glass, and then the sound came back. Not laughter this time, not breathing, Just one word stretched low and wet again. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. The TV cut to black. I yanked the tape out, hands shaking so badly it almost snapped in half. My chest heaved like I'd just sprinted a mile. But here's the part that terrifies me. Even after that, after hearing it speak, I wanted to play it again. I wanted to see what came next. It was like a hook buried under my ribs, tugging forward. The sick part? It didn't even feel foreign. Felt like me, like some part of me had always been waiting for this. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at the tape on my counter, chewing my lip until it bled. And I kept thinking, what if I don't watch? What if the real punishment isn't in playing the tape, but in resisting it? Because every second I didn't press play, I felt it. This gnawing presence in the apartment, pacing, waiting, whispering at the edges of my hearing. By dawn, I realized the truth. It wasn't that I couldn't stop watching. It was that the tape wouldn't stop watching me. The morning after that last rewatch, everything felt shifted, not in the I'm tired, I need coffee kind of way. No, this was deeper. The world itself felt off-kilter, like a film reel slipping out of sync. It started small. My kitchen clock ticked wrong, skipping seconds, then doubling back. My neighbor's dog barked outside, but the sound stretched, warped, as if someone was dragging a tape head across it. And when I looked out my window, I swore the street bent. The pavement curved upward, impossible angles leading nowhere. I blinked and it snapped back to normal, but I knew. It wasn't my eyes. It was the tape. It wasn't just something I watched, it was leaking. That night, I tried to test it. I set my phone on a tripod, recording the living room while the TV was off. Just to see. When I played it back, my stomach dropped. For the first 2 minutes, it was fine. Empty couch, silent apartment. Then, without warning, the footage glitched. One frame, SpongeBob's pineapple house. Next frame, my living room again. Then, the Krusty Krab interior, the overturned tables, ketchup stains. Then me sitting on the couch, even though I hadn't been there. I rewound, frame by frame, jaw tightening. Each flicker of footage wasn't random. It was splicing their world into mine. And worse, in the frames where I sat on the couch, it wasn't quite me. The smile was too wide, the eyes too glassy, like the version of me on screen had already given in. I shut the phone off, shoved it under a pillow like a kid hiding from a monster. But it didn't help, because the static was already inside my head. That night, while brushing my teeth, I glanced in the mirror and nearly dropped the toothbrush. For just a second, my reflection didn't move with me. It lagged half a second behind, like a bad recording, and when it caught up, its lips stretched into a grin I hadn't made. I spit toothpaste into the sink, shaking, muttering, "It's just stress. Just stress." But I didn't believe it, because when I walked back to the living room, the TV was already on, static, humming like it was breathing. And right in the middle of the screen, my apartment. My couch, my window. The angle was perfect, as if the show had swallowed the room whole. Except it wasn't empty. There was someone sitting on the couch, someone with my face, someone smiling too wide. I unplugged the TV, yanked the cord straight out of the wall. The screen stayed on. After the TV incident, I did what any terrified, rational human would do. I Googled it. Lost SpongeBob episode cursed. VHS subliminal frames. TV won't turn off static. The results were the usual mix of creepypasta forums, half-baked conspiracy, blogs, and Reddit threads written by people who sounded just as paranoid as me. Normally, I would have laughed it off. But this time, every post read like a warning I was too late to hear. One thread stood out. It was buried deep, on an archived forum I'd never heard of. Pages broken and glitching like they were barely holding together. The thread title was simple: "Do not watch it twice." My chest tightened as I scrolled. The posts were short, frantic, like people typing between panic attacks. It starts with cartoons, always cartoons. The frames aren't random, they're instructions. Your reflection will go first. The more you rewatch, the more you're recorded. And then the last post, date stamped over 10 years ago. If you see the eyes, it's already too late. I slammed the laptop shut, hands clammy. But curiosity gnawed at me. What did they mean by instructions? I opened the laptop again, forced myself back onto the thread, but the page had vanished. Just 404 error, like it had never existed. That's when my phone buzzed, a notification. But not from any app I recognized, just a blank screen with text across it. "Why are you looking?" I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, screen still glowing. I didn't pick it up. Instead, I called Jamie, again. He answered, groggy, annoyed. "What now?" I found people talking about it, about the tape. They knew. "Dude, stop, you're spiraling." "I'm not spiraling, it's real, Jamie. They wrote about reflections, about watching twice." He cut me off with a sharp sigh. "Listen to yourself, you sound insane. You're hearing voices, seeing things, digging through creepy forums at 3 a.m. Burn the tape, get some sleep, and quit calling me every night." I opened my mouth to argue, but froze. Because through the phone speaker, just under Jamie's voice, I heard it. A laugh, high-pitched, goofy, then low, wet like breathing. "Jamie," I whispered. But the line had gone dead. And in the silence of my apartment, my laptop screen flickered to static. It started small, little intrusions at first that felt like bugs, not invasions. A sticker of SpongeBob on a stranger's backpack that appeared down the block. A child's laughter in the hallway that matched the cadence of the show's theme. An advertisement on a bus that flickered for a second and showed the yellow sponge's face stretched too wide. Each one alone was easy to explain. Together they read like a sentence written across my city. I tried to catalog them, because cataloging is how I kept myself from dissolving into panic. A list on my phone. Date. Time. What I saw. The list filled faster than I liked. A local laundromat posted a flyer for cartoon night, with no organizer listed. A delivery driver with a Krabby Patty sticker tapped at my building's intercom, then walked away without waiting. My neighbor's toddler woke at odd hours, humming the SpongeBob tune in the exact wrong key. The encroachment felt less like a story and more like a tide. It wasn't confined to my apartment anymore. The tape's logic, if it can be called logic, was spilling into the world. Images from those forbidden frames were bleeding through screens. and surfaces, reflections that lagged, shadows that paused slightly out of sync, faces caught mid-blink where the blink stretched too long. Worse was how people reacted. They saw. Sometimes they smiled at the wrong time. Sometimes they laughed without a cause. Once, at the grocery store, a woman standing in front of the cereal aisle turned slowly and met my eyes with recognition that was too intimate for a stranger. She said cheerily, "Nice tape, huh?" and walked away. Her voice left the sentence like a hook in my chest. Who had told her? Who else knew? I stopped leaving notes. I stopped calling friends. Whoever, whatever, was pushing this out had ways to intercept. Emails returned errors. Voicemails corrupted mid-message. When I tried to show footage to someone at work, the file stuttered, and the image dissolved into static as if the tape itself refused to be shared. It guarded itself. At night, the apartment hummed differently. The walls thrummed with low, distant sound like a projector spool turning somewhere beyond the building. My dreams shifted from cartoon to documentary. Scenes cut together of actual places. The Krusty Krab, my kitchen counter, spliced so my mind could no longer tell which was memory and which was footage. I began to see quick flashes when I blinked. A spatula dripping in thick black. A pineapple window with something pressing behind it. A hand, someone's hand, tapping the glass. Panic turned to strategy. I removed all screens from view, buried the TV, taped the VCR into a box, but the images kept finding me. An invoice with an advertising logo showed the yellow silhouette. A billboard on the highway meant for some car ad, flickered for a beat and presented the wrong smile. The city had become a projector room, each surface a potential frame. The worst thing was the silence between incidents. It made the air feel like something listening. I'd walk past people and feel the weight of attention as palpably as a hand on my shoulder. Once, a stranger said, as if finishing my thought, "You shouldn't have watched it twice," and kept walking. That voice did not need to be heard twice for me to understand. The encroachment had moved beyond me. It had become public, and public things don't vanish quietly.